What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rewind Recap Relive, where legends and rising stars meet. I'm your host, Jonah, bringing you another can't-miss episode of the show, this time featuring rising independent talent Cody James and WWE Hall of Famer Don Morocco. But first, let's get into the winner of last week's giveaway, our next giveaway, and next week's show. So first, the winner of last week's giveaway being the signed Don Morocco 8x10 is Antique Gaming. Congratulations, you guys are the winner, and we will be in touch. As for next week on the show, I'll say this. I hope you're ready to board this train, because I definitely am. And that's right, we have the one and only WWE Hall of Famer, the Godfather himself, on the show, appearing with rising talent Dashing D1000. Such a fun episode coming at you next week, and you have the chance to win this beautiful signed poster by not only Godfather, but Papa Shango as well. And to enter to win that, you have to comment hashtag R3giveaway down below in this video. That's hashtag R3giveaway down below in the full Cody James and Don Morocco interview, and you will be entered to win that incredible poster. Okay, we've taken care of all the information. Now all that's left for you guys to do is please subscribe to the channel. Tons of content on the way for you guys, and more giveaways too, so keep your eyes open for that. Like the video, share it around. As always, keep your eyes open as well for the smoke train next week. But above all else, enjoy this interview. So our first guest has wrestled mainly with Chicago-style wrestling, but is looking to branch out, of course, when the time is right. He's approaching 2 years now and has quickly climbed the ranks in his young career. Please welcome Cody James.
Hey guys, how are you? It's a pleasure to be on here. Thank you, Jonah.
Absolutely. And our next guest is a legend in the wrestling industry. He's feuded with so many greats throughout his illustrious career spanning close to 30 years. Please welcome WWE Hall of Famer Don Morocco.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good in these down times.
Yeah,
strange times.
Really strange. A lot of uncertainty, but it's great to have you both here. And I always like to start it off with something basic and just how you got into the wrestling business. So, Cody, if you can go first and tell us where your journey began.
You know, I've been a lifelong fan. I didn't start this until I was 30 years old. I'm about to be 32 years old coming up here at the end of this month. So a little late to start, but, you know, some greats have started late. So we'll see where this goes.
For sure. And so how long have you been a lifelong fan? You got into it 30 years old, you said?
Yes, sir.
What is it that made it go from just an interest to something you actually wanted to pursue?
You know, I always wanted to train, and I just never really knew where. You know, having real life jobs and doing everything outside of wrestling, you know, my entire life, not really knowing where to pursue it. I got a friend request on Facebook from Steve Boz from Chicago Style Wrestling, and it seemed like all the stars aligned at that point. So I called him, you know, met up at the school with him, watched the practice, and I was instantly hooked. And from that moment on, I knew that, you know, it was time to pursue that dream.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And Don, where did wrestling go from an interest to a career for you?
Well, same way, a lifelong fan.
Yeah.
Worked out at Dean Ho, Dean Higuchi, Dean Ho of the WWF in those days. His tag partner with I think Tony Gurria. They're world champions, and he had a gym in Waikiki, and all the guys used to work out there, and they used to run the tours back and forth from Australia. So I knew a bunch of the wrestlers from there, and then a lot of guys, you know. But Lord Tallyho Blears was the one that actually sent me, put me on the road and started me down. He sent me to Vancouver with Sandra Kovacs and Gene Kunitsky.
Right.
So that's, you know, one thing led to another.
Yeah. And so we've had a lot of wrestlers on here in the past that talk about those territory days of pro wrestling, which you competed in, obviously. And I'd like to get your take on them. Any early memories from those?
It's just the way, you know, it was the way it was. You know, everybody had their own TVs and their satellite and their wrestling magazines and everything else. So they're all individual. And later on, I was lucky to be in the WWF, and the transition went down from individual territories to one or two major companies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty much worldwide, or North America at the time. So I like the territories. It was nice to change, and it gave more guys the opportunity to make a living. More
Right.
guys to make. The Chicago area. There were two wrestling promotions out of there. The Bruiser and Snyder had one out of Indianapolis, and then when Vern Gagne had the AWA out of Minneapolis. So they were running their scores of towns around there. So they had 2 or 3 crews apiece running. Since there was work for lots of guys, along with all the other territories running. So it was
Right.
It was good for a lot of people. Now it's kind of cut down. Independents are coming back, but at the time they were the independents.
And having experienced both, like the way you did, do you like one more than the other? Would you say that you're more fond of territories, or when you were in, then there was one company, did you feel more relaxed?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I surfed a lot, so I loved.
Yeah.
I loved living in Santa Cruz. It was an extra half hour, 45 minutes drive to the town, but I love Santa Cruz. Florida was a great wrestling experience if you wanted to be a professional wrestler, and learning from all those guys. I wasn't wild about the AWA, mostly because it was Minnesota and Chicago and those freezing temperatures, which I knew I had no experience with, coming out of Hawaii, and I had just been around the business less than 2 years at that time, so that was a pretty heavy jump.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold up here in Chicago.
I was going to say, have any experience with that, Cody?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. And so you're still pretty new, right? But you're really building your name and getting your name out there and climbing the ranks, like I said, in a short time. Can you tell us why you think that is? Are there any mentors that you could thank to where you are now?
Again, I really thank Steve.
Yeah.
Everything that I've been able to do so far, it would have never been possible without him getting me in. As of late, Jason Hades has really been helping a lot with training. So those guys really stepping up. And then, we got this little group out here in Chicago called the Chicago Sideshow. A lot of those guys have really taken me under their wing and, taught me the do's and the don'ts, all from starting the setup of the ring, to the takedown of the ring and everything in between. So it's been a blast, the entire way so far.
Yeah. And it's definitely valuable experience to have. Don, was it easy for you to make a name for yourself, or did it take time to get out there when you first broke into the business?
I guess it took a while. I went to the AWA after maybe less than 2 years.
Yeah.
But that again, that was knowing somebody, and Lord Blears and his association with Vern Gagne, and having a little bit of talent and training with Billy Robinson, and so that was a pretty much a lucky break, So then it's hard to say. Then from there,
right,
as spread out, as wide and as powerful as that territory was at the time, and pretty well just established my name. And from there to Florida, and then I had some.
Yeah, and is there anything when you first broke in that you wish you knew, or did you kind of just go with the flow?
Well, the old timers kept you pretty well under check. So then there's not a you weren't you weren't doing anything real hairy or anything.
Right.
All the stuff they do now, you probably they kept you under control pretty well.
And what is it that eventually led you to the WWF? Can you tell us about that?
It was still territory. It was still territorial in those days. So I had I'd worked and finished working in Florida, and had a good run. Came back to Hawaii like I normally did for the winter, and took my chances. The Vince McMahon Senior, they were starting to go to a little bit, not the giant heels that they had. They're starting to go to a little more of wrestling territory, more of a working territory than just. They used to have brute monsters come in, and just beat down the champion in a 6-month run. So it was more of a wrestling. So I'm more of an opening in the door than a lot at the time.
Right. And so having traveled through the territories as you did, I'm sure each one had its own backstage life and its own culture. Did you feel when you got to the WWF territory that it was any different than any of the others at first?
At first, no, it wasn't. We went from Maine to Washington, D.C., and then as far east as Pittsburgh. And those are further areas of Maryland and Pittsburgh. West Virginia was all out of Atlanta TV. So, it was pretty much territorial at the time, my first tour there. And then it changed.
Right. And yeah, of course. And I'd love to, and I want to get into that. Cody, I'm interested to hear about the promotion you're with now. And, obviously, as we mentioned, still young into your career, how it's helped you along the way and how it's been able to adapt during this. And I also hear you have a show coming up if you'd like to mention.
Yeah. We, it's been something, man. The last show we worked was in March. We had a good turnout. It was literally the weekend before everything came down out here. So it was a great time that those guys got to do it. I had a baby on the way at the time, so I had to set that one out, not knowing what was going on, so we couldn't risk getting sick. We put a halt on everything. I was able to stay in the gym the entire time, which was nice, but we couldn't get in the ring and, run drills or, do any of that stuff up until pretty much June, actually July. So we've been going hard as of late. We're so excited to get back out there. We have our first show coming up end of August 29th. So hoping for a good turnout. We're going to, we're obviously going to take safety as number one concern. But
absolutely, yeah.
Back out there again, it's a rush. All of it. Don knows the rush of it, and it's something else.
How is it wrestling with no people or a downsized crowd than your average show?
It's different. The reason we're out there to perform for fans. Exactly. Without the fans, it's really hard. It's wrestling's about peaks and valleys and taking those fans on a ride. So the more the merrier, and the louder they are, the easier our job is.
Yeah. Don, did you feel that? Did you feed off the crowd a lot?
Sure. Yeah, it takes the psychology the whole psychology out of the match. I mean, you work to what they're buying. Sometimes they swing this way, or they swing that way, and you can hold off giving them something for a while, or you can just go for it. And you have to know the time. That's a big part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
It's having them in your hand, being able to move them to the highs and the lows and stuff like that. The way it is now, it's just it's pretty much ritual. You're going through the same stuff that you do in the gym. They're working hard. They're working real hard, but it just nothing. I'm watching Law and Order now instead of NBA.
Yeah.
An episode I've seen 5 times maybe. I just have the TV. I'm not actually watching, but you know what I mean.
Right.
I think none of this stuff goes without the fans. It doesn't work. It's hard to work. It's hard to you watch the WWF. They tried for a while, and first couple of weeks it was okay, and then the guys are so talented, and they work so hard, but after a while it just just didn't click, 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 and it's like that rip in a record where it just keeps going over and over and over. You don't
Right.
you don't get a break.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying entirely. And so, Don, you were with the WWF from 1981 to 1988, right, with a short break in between, I believe.
Right.
So clearly those were very formidable years. The business was changing rapidly. Explain how that changed, because you were right in the mix of things. How did that feel, being in a company that was really going big as WWF was, and when Vince was taking over, Vince Jr.?
It was mind-blowing, that there was so much, it was coming down so fast. You had probably three big crews were working three, big cities a night.
Yeah.
In different areas of the center, your Chicago area, then you had your East Coast area, your West Coast, or Texas, or, Louisiana. You had three crews out there every night. You're running every night. You're running for airports and hotels and gyms every chance you got. So that was, and then TV. There was TV after TV, interview after interview. All kinds of vignettes and stuff in between.
Yeah, and was it taken? Were a lot of guys, did they have a positive outlook on it? Did you feel like the attitude that you got from the guys in the back, that it was changing, it was going national, right? It was kind of getting consolidated, or were guys not as happy with it?
Everybody was going to the bank. You know what I mean? So when you're cashing those steady checks, and they were going to the bank before that started, but then they started the merchandising and the the individual TV and then the different spots and the location, the great amount of Chicago was just a part of a terror. I mean, Chicago was. They got the Bulls, the Bulls, the Bears, the Cubs, and the White Sox. Just that's just one. That was just one city, one part of a tour for one team. So all the big areas. So you're not going to be bitching, about your payoffs and stuff when you got Chicago one day, Milwaukee the next.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's you just grin and bear it.
Chicago's
and how? Yeah, no, they do. How was Vince McMahon in those early years of building what would become this, obviously wrestling empire, this global thing that it is today? How was he? Did you find him like stressed at all? Was he calm and collected? Because WrestleMania was there, right? He was playing in the first one. What'd you think about that?
He was cool. He was cool. Yeah. He's always possessed. He was always. Like when I first started there, we did the famed Allentown and Hamburg TVs Tuesdays and Wednesdays every month, and he ran the whole show out of an earplug, and the whole hundreds, the 100, 200 interviews for the 2 days that he did the in and outs, this program, and cage match, strap match, championship match, boom, boom. He had them all. Howard Fink would write them down on a piece of paper, a couple main events, couple cards. And that was it. Off we went,
Yeah.
Morocco, Steel, this guy, you're up. Backlund, this guy, that, you're up.
Absolutely.
It was just daily work, just running through everything.
And so, Cody, tell me, in these coming on 2 years now, what have you learned mentality as a performer, right, as a wrestler, from CSW and maybe somewhere else? What have you picked up along the way, important tactics, you think?
Respect your vets. That's the first one. Always show the older guys, respect. Just listening. The biggest thing is to listen, and I try to take every second in. Anything that I can learn from anybody, they could be there 5 days longer than me to 10 years longer than me. I just want to listen. I just want to learn every step of the way, because if I can learn something from them and I apply it, to what I'm going to do or what I'm have planned, then we both win, because they're helping the younger guy,
right,
and I'm learning and I'm not letting somebody down,
Exactly. No, those bits and pieces, they'll form the final, mold. That's great. And Don, what are your thoughts on that? What would you say the most valuable skill that you picked up was?
exactly what I just finished this mentioning.
Okay.
In those days, everybody would work with you, especially me, being one of the younger guys and around the AWA in some of those places. They'd come back and critique my match. Guys like Bockwinkel and Stevens or Larry Henning and guys like that, telling you, give you the pluses and minuses of what to do. And, if you listen, you could grow. And then, you're working every night, the opportunity to put those things, into action just right away. It wasn't a waiting process. Come back in 3 weeks. We have another show coming up in a little while. You just, the next night you're out there, you're going again. So yeah, it's listening to the other guys, and and they were good enough to pass everything along. So that's good to see that it's still happening, still going on. And a lot of these the independent places that are, I don't know if they're doing it at the big shows anymore, or the big WWE anymore. If they're helping each other out, or if they're trying to throw subsides on the ground while you're walking. So you can slip, It's hard to. And I've heard a lot of stories since I've been out, so it very well could be that.
Right. And so, Don, what did it feel like? I want to get into your first title win with the WWF, which was the Intercontinental Championship, right, from Pedro Morales. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that felt, and how that rivalry was in general for you?
Thank God for beach bums.
Yeah.
That's a thing. It came out of nowhere, and
I know, yeah.
I just jumped on it and rode it, and we never pushed them out, but somehow the people on the East Coast had it in for the West Coasters, and that beach bum thing kind of took off, and beating Pedro was because he'd never lost a match in the Garden, except for that one he lost. I guess it was put it back to Superstar, I guess, or I don't know, whoever he dropped.
I'm not sure.
Stan Stasiak, I think. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that was the only time. I don't think he even lost that in the Garden. So he had, it was pretty monumental, and he had an enormous following. So there was a lot of heat beating Pedro, or even being matched up with Pedro.
And did you feel any type of pressure with that title win, or not really? Because you said it was so monumental. What'd you think about that when you beat him?
Oh, there was just pressure in general.
Yeah.
It was just there was it was a daily grind, as in every other territory was, to keep rolling and stuff. I mean, all the territories around the country were pretty much on a day-to-day basis. You worked there, 5-6 times, maybe even 7 or 8 times a week. So there was always a grind. There was always a pressure to keep up, keep your interval skills, keep your wrestling skills, keep your conditioning skills, keep everything, intact.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about those interview, those promo skills? Because I'd love to go to Cody after and see, how did you use those to enhance your character and your career, in general? Was it hard for you at first?
Sure. Everybody's kind of got to grow into a character, I think. You don't come, well, if you do, though, old timers will hold you down. Or if you're too, they would hold you back, and maybe you could come in with a flamboyant, type gimmick, Adrian Adonis, Flower Shop,
exactly.
or old Adrian Street, who I never met, but I know did that type of thing with the wig, and a couple guys, did the feminine act, and but they came in, and it wasn't a change. So it's and those are different territories too. So, but you could you pretty much you had to develop the character yourself. The Rock wasn't the Rock when he first when you take his Rocky Maivia to all the way to the do you smell what the Rock's cooking?
Exactly, yeah.
And those there's a good jump in between those.
Yeah,
between that character, those two characters,
for
sure. You grow and you feel it, and you know what works. Something like the psychology, you know what works, you know what doesn't work after a while.
Mm-hmm. And Cody, can you attest to that at all? And also for your promo skills, have you used those to enhance your character or career in any way?
Man, character development's been one of the toughest things I think, that I've had to learn so far. A lot of people said, your characters, a lot of the times it's you just turned up by 100 times in some instances. But, training in the gym and running drills, that stuff came so much more naturally to me. It's the character development that I've really found myself having to work at. And, I watch a lot of 80s, early 90s. I think that's when the best characters were, on TV, so I watch a lot of that, and, I try to take bits and pieces from it, to apply it to me in my persona, but it's never ending. It's something you can't stop doing, because once you feel comfortable, somebody's going to pass you up, just like, any other day out there in the real world.
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't want to get complacent. And not to put you on the spot, but is there anyone in particular from those 80s that you watch that you've picked pieces of, or in the 90s, or?
Not really. Nobody specific.
Okay.
Just
in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big Piper fan. Obviously, Hogan is a huge influence, when I was younger. So, but I mean, anybody I could take anything from, I have WrestleMania 6 on in the background right now, and Andre's on. So just how he, walks around, and how he could point at somebody, and it just looks so intense. Like, just those little things that a fan could pick up on. I think it's huge. Macho Man, Jake the Snake, like, one of the best talkers I think ever was Jake.
Yeah. And Don, I mean, you were around right when all those larger than life kind of characters were forming. Can you speak to any of those at all? Any how you watch them maybe transform, kind of like how you mentioned The Rock, from Maivia to The Rock?
Well, Hulk, I saw he's from Tampa, Tampa area, and he was going with the sister of a girl. I lived in the apartment, and he was working the Alabama territory at the time, and he came in. I remember he did a spot show up by Ocala or Gainesville, which was a spot show at the time. And boy, he was impressive, 300 something pounds, 6'6", and I don't think Dusty wanted him around. So he got impressed. But there were certain people I learned and tried to follow. I had some of the greatest in the business that I followed, that I learned from. Courtesy Alkea and Ripper Collins, who fit Hawaii like a glove, the Southern accent and murdering the Hawaiian language. And Johnny Durant. And then Ed Francis and Tally Ho, the way their programming was so far ahead. It was, it was like 20, 30 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
They were doing stuff that the WWF started doing, when I was there, the off the wall stuff, the cutaways, stuff like that. So Ed Francis, and there were territories like that. They were pretty off the wall.
And so, Cody, talk to me now about the intimidation factor, stepping into the ring for the first time. What was going through your head? And I'm sure you can't shake those feelings easily or at all, right? So let's hear about that.
First thought was, all the younger guys being like, who's this old man getting in the ring? Right. A lot of them could be like a little brother to me, or, the girl's like a little sister, just because I'm so much older than all of them. 10 years, on a lot of them. So I was definitely, intimidated that I wouldn't be able to keep up. I've been an athlete my entire life. I'm 6'4", I'm 270 pounds, and I've always been able to move, but it's a completely different element. I wasn't afraid of the bumps. I wasn't afraid of putting the work in. It was more so, am I going to be accepted? Being older, am I going to be given an opportunity? Yeah. Because I'm older, I don't have as long anymore, as the other guys coming up, or the other girls that are coming up. So, what were they going to do with me? Was I even going to get looked at? And that was one of the first things I told them when I signed up is, hey, I don't have many years. So if I can't cut it and you don't think I can cut it right away, please let me know right away, so I don't waste your time or my time. But I think I fell more in love with the sport that very day. It was nothing I've ever felt before.
2 years is just a drop in the bucket, guy. You know, you just take, and like I say, you guys don't work every night. Every night, you're not in a routine like when I started. So just take your time. Let it. Well, don't take your time, but work hard. Work hard.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I wish they still had it like that though, where there were shows every night in a different town, and I really think that's when wrestling really flourished, and it was a special time for the sport. Now it's you wait till the weekend. Weekend warriors.
Grassroots, yeah, grassroots. When going to like Griffin, Georgia, on Saturday nights on the way back from doing Columbus TV and Atlanta TV, and they had a spot show 30, 40 miles outside of Atlanta that you hit. So that was, you're always going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Don, do you have any advice on maybe how to shake or at least wrestle with those nerves from that first match to really the rest of your career? Were you always feeling that?
Oh yeah, I imagine that's we're talking we're talking ages, decades ago when that first. I'm sure I was. I'm sure everything. There was apprehensive over a lot of things when I was first cage match, first title, first whatever, first going to new territory, but after a while, you have yourself and your belief in yourself with what you're doing and your style and what you're doing for yourself. So, that helped. But after, when you first start, I imagine there's a bunch of butterflies in there.
For sure. And so you were managed, Don, by the Grand Wizard, Albano, and then Mr. Fuji, right? Those were your main guys who you were with during your career.
And then superstar at the end, yeah.
Okay.
But those three, yeah.
Who would you say, of course, Mr. Fuji had a lot of fun with, right? With the different vignettes that you guys would do. And so who would you say, though, furthered your career the most and that you had the best time with?
Well, Fuji, I knew
Probably
Fuji.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys. He was a local wrestler from Hawaii, Harry Fujiwara, and he was from Dean's Gym. Dean Good. In fact, he used to take the guys, the wrestlers that came in town, and he'd take them out to his local bars and stuff. He was a local businessman, local salesman. He used to do something to the guys on Sunday night that have Block Arena or Schofield, which is a 30, 40-minute trip. And he said, load up tomorrow. We got a long trip. We're going to Schofield. We have to go and you drive them all around the island 3-4 times. 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, he'd drive and lunch and this and have them buy a couple cases of beer for the trip home. And everybody get in the car. 25 minutes later, okay, get out. You're at the hotel. What the hell? That was,
that's great.
That's
the type of guy he was. Yeah.
Yeah, always having fun with him. And then he could fire back on him too.
Yeah. How about Albano and the Grand Wizard? They were both great to you too.
The Wizard was a good, hell of a guy, and Lou too. They're different characters, different personalities, of course. But the Ernie was he was Vince Senior's secretary more or less. He did a lot of the work, a lot of office work and stuff for Vince down in Florida when Senior lived in Florida and stuff. And he was he was a tremendous manager that would work for his work for the guy. He was in charge. He was a mouthpiece for them. And Lou was just a wild and crazy guy. There was always you never know what's coming out with Lou. Those two guys never traveled on the road. They didn't travel on the road with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were just the managers. Pretty much did Madison Square Garden and interviews were pretty much the scope of it. And then even Lou was on the road after a while. When he went to manage Bulldogs and guys like that. But I moved on from Lou by then. But Lou's, as over as Lou was, who didn't know Lou from
exactly.
around New York and the East Coast? you can't go wrong with him as a manager, especially getting heat.
Yeah.
Everybody hated the guy, or love to hate him.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what about with Fuji? All those you did a lot of spoofs of the Hawaii 5-0 spoofs that you guys did with those.
Yeah.
So how was all that? Who pitched those ideas to you, and how was that for you trying to like kind of craft your character?
Those are a product of what was it? Search for Tomorrow. I don't know if you guys remember. You guys are pretty young, but there was a soap opera that was, As the World Turns, Guiding Light, Search for Tomorrow was evidently a popular soap at the time. So they had Hulk Hogan coming to that town to wrestle myself, and it was like took like a couple of hours to do. It was fast, went in, and it ended up to being about 2 weeks of shows. Then I broke up the TV station, did a few things, and that's and that's how that. So Vince got in his mind somehow that he was going to start doing his own shows.
Yeah.
So what Vince saw and what Vince said in his, what Vince wanted, Vince got.
Yeah. And you like doing those? You enjoyed that, having fun with Fuji?
Yeah, they're fun. They're okay. They're extra work. They didn't carve out any time so we could do that. That was aside from making our regular appearances. Wherever we were booked on a daily schedule, doing those, and then squeezing those. Most of them were done in Baltimore on that Tuesday night Titan, but a lot of them were done, on the move, on location.
Yeah. And I want to throw it over to Cody now. Tell me about your style in the ring and what you try to get across to the audience. What do you try to get them to remember about you?
Right now, I'm a huge baby face right now. But kind of a bruiser. I'm a big guy. Just my power, my strength. But at the same time, I'm looked at kind of as a big softie right now where I'm working. So hopefully I get a little bit meaner image in the coming months.
Yeah. And Don, what about you? What was your it factor that you always tried to get across to the audience? I know you were two different. You were a face and a heel, right? So.
Hard work.
Hard work, yeah.
Yeah, I was just I was out there and, just go.
Yeah. And
using the timing and psychology, to highlight things, it wasn't
exactly.
It wasn't one move to another, one finish to another, like it is kind of now, or multiple finish matches, just timing but a lot of high spots, a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm. And which way, if you could just remind me, did you go from babyface to heel at first, or from right? So, do you have any advice, perhaps, for Cody on how he could make that transition and make it really believable and mean something for the crowd?
It has to be done. You have to, if you're babyface now, you work an angle out of that way. Mine was easy because I was like a Jack Briscoe lookalike in Florida, of all places. His hometown, adopted hometown. So I was able to maintain babyface and work along and work with Jack later, and then come back a couple of years later and shift to a heel. But I'd already turned to a heel in San Francisco. But and that was through an angle, but just my persona. It was like a coming out. I was tired of being a babyface, and I was never really happy. I was happy. Things worked good, but I was, I had always preferred to be a heel, but as I was young and growing up and getting fatter, it's hard to, then the heel transformation, it was easier to come by.
Yeah. Cody, do you find yourself wanting to try to branch off into being a heel at all, or?
I'm whatever I can get a better, reaction out of. I'm always up for a
Right.
challenge, I guess. It's like Don said, a lot of hard work, and I strive off, pressure. So if I'm up against something that's not really in my element, I feel like I can do my best work, or I pull through.
Right.
I always say I work better when I'm stressed out. But yeah, I mean, whatever the road takes me, I'm up for. If it's a new opportunity, I'm gonna jump all over it. To try to make the best out of that.
Absolutely. Don, let's transition to a night I'm sure you're asked about countless times, right? You and Jimmy Superfly Snuka, the steel cage match, the iconic dive off the top. When Snuka flattens you with the splash.
He's 15, 22, at 245 pounds, 15, 25, 20 feet in the air, landing on you. Why? It's all fake anyway, so it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Never knew he was there.
Did you guys know Did you guys know that it was going to be an image that lived forever, like the way it was? Can you talk a little bit about how that match came about?
Well, it was impressive, and the territory was on fire at the time. So it was the first USA Network was carrying it. I think at the time it was like a cable record that they'd sent across the country. So, do you ever think this is going to be immortalized or live for 30, 40, 50 years as it seems to be? No, I don't think you imagine that. You're getting through that. You're making, you're appeasing, you're making everybody happy.
Yeah.
What they that's what they paid for, to see him come off the top of the cage. So, you check that box, so, everybody, you blew the roof off of that joint. So you pick up your tools and go back to work again for another time.
Yeah. And a spot like that might be like commonplace, now, obviously. Was it common or was it not back then?
Well, he'd done that previously in a match with Bob Backlund for the WWF title, and Backlund moved the splash. So and Backlund was a baby face, and Jimmy was kind of a in and out. He hadn't really switched heel yet, but the people, he was already, he already had one foot in the door as far as being a babyface, and being loved like nobody was ever, loved like in New York, or going, reaching that brutal Pedro Antonio Rocca status, So it was it was ready, and then, when we went for it, it was what they wanted to see, and what put him in the memory book, or the all time.
Yeah, exactly. That history book.
Yeah.
Did you have a good relationship with Snuka outside of the ring?
Yeah. I knew him from here back to Dean's Gym again, and I always tell that story about how he used to drive Johnson and Busher, the beer distributors on the island. So he would park his big delivery truck that he went to all the liquor stores and grocery stores and deliver, and he'd come into Dean's, and he'd bang out a workout, hour workout, and get back in his truck, left the keys in the ignition. Fuji and his friends stole the truck, drove the truck out of Coolio, unloaded all the booze, then drove the truck somewhere and left it. Jimmy came out, looked for the truck. Oh, there's no truck. Those are the days. I was living in Waikiki Circle Hotel next to by Frankie Lane. Frankie Lane was the one that trained him, that started Jimmy. Taking bumps and hitting the rope and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that's where you were living during that.
Yeah, I surfed. I knew him before he got in the business.
Right.
In Portland, and he was an island brother. He lives right down the road. He's from right down the road here, another 10 miles, by Kuku area.
Oh, that's nice. So Cody, tell me about your biggest struggle that you faced so far in your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been something, it's I need those reps. I
Yeah,
need to be in the ring, I need to be rolling around, I need to be hitting the ropes, I need to be bumping. I need all of that. So this right now is really messing up a lot of things. Taking away from that, but I understand, for safety, obviously we got to put that first, and I'll never argue.
course, yeah.
But honestly, that's been my biggest struggle so far. I'm loving this, man. It's been a trip. It's an amazing ride so far, and I'm so excited to see where it could go and anything.
Yeah,
It's just something. I never thought I'd be sitting
of
here
course.
having a conversation like this, let alone getting to work in
Yeah.
front of people too. So something.
So you just take it as it comes, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and Don, you touched upon it earlier, being impressed by Hulk Hogan, and of course you had a steel cage match with Hogan, right? That many people consider one of the bloodiest matches ever. How was it working with Hulk Hogan? Did you enjoy that? And some of the other greats you worked with too, obviously. You ever feel any pressure?
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear that music, bing. There's a paycheck on the other side. The building's usually full. I was in a time. Well, there was politics. There's always politics involved. So,
Right.
there was politicking going on, and guys going to Vince for this and that. But working with Hulk was a pleasure. It was it was really easy. I mean, it was he was Hulk. You didn't have to do it. You didn't have to do a lot to get the people going. I mean, they were there. You'd come in, you'd start, you'd go, bing, bing, bing. After about 15, 20 minutes, he'd Hulk up. That was it.
Yeah. No, that's great. Cody, so can you tell me about some defining moments from your career so far?
Helping put together, some shows in the local area. So I'm right outside Chicago. I live in Lake in the Hills, Illinois. Chicago style wrestling is, in Chicago.
Exactly, yeah.
We branched out, and a company out in Woodstock, which is about 10 minutes from me, called Northland. It's a little division of Chicago style wrestling. Help get that back up and going, and being able to, get a lot of friends and family, and the support from them is astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to fill up, a banquet hall full of friends, full of family, full of fans, and be able to be a main on a card, a year in, it was something that blew me away. And so that was a huge accomplishment, helping get a venue for August, to be able to help the guys so they can work, so they can perform. Out in Lake in the Hills, out by me, we're bringing Chicago style wrestling out to Lake in the Hills. It was something big because nobody knows what they're doing right now. Nobody wants to risk it. A lot of places don't want to have events, so the American Legion Hall in Lake in the Hills, they're really cool with it, and they're super excited for it. So being able to help the company that way, to give people a spot to work, I think that's been the biggest so far. Just because that's
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. Without work, what are we doing?
Exactly, yeah. You're giving a lot of people a shot. That's great. And still, as we said, so early in your career, already giving the others, giving back. So that's cool. Don, at one point you went and worked with UWF for Herb Abrams, right? And I'm sure a lot of people have seen the Dark Side of the Ring episode they did on UWF. Can you tell us a little bit about that for those who didn't?
I went for the first 2 or 3 shows right at the real beginning. So he didn't have all the hookers and the cocaine and running around but he was wild. He was nuts. He was coming into. He was going to take over New York, and he was going to do this.
Yeah.
Being around. After being around, and after I had my run in WWF. You hear them all, and everybody's gonna knock Vince off of his throne. It was just my wife was working for a travel company. We got the tickets. He paid for my traveling. He put us up. I remember we even got there for one Valentine's Day. Went to a Little Italy to eat. Can I say something about the independent wrestling? I think
Absolutely.
if you just keep your nose down, and work hard, and keep going, and naturally you're without the opportunity to work as often as you like. But I think as far as the independent wrestling, the only way you're going to make a highlight on YouTube or something is if you do something really stupid. Like I've seen these guys. I sent the guys to pour lighter fluid on his leg and set himself on fire, and then the guy jumped off, slipped off a ladder and with a chair and hit the corner of an apron and probably killed half a dozen things that's the only things that make YouTube. A good solid hard worker that goes up. It's only ridiculous. Acts of stupidity that'll get you up there, and it usually involves yourself getting really hurt. I'm sure those guys, who New Jack threw that guy off the scaffolding and all,
right, yeah,
and stabbing old Joe. What was the guy's?
I knew his. I forget it. Yeah, New Jack. He stabbed the Joe something. I forget his name. Do you know Cody? The old guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the stuff, crazy stuff he used to do. And just in general, a lot of your stuff isn't getting out there to the YouTube world, to the public, but it's really not what you want out there.
Yeah.
Think of the current product right now. I mean, with the two companies, we only had one big company for a while. What do you think that, having two big companies now at this point?
I think there's a lot of towns that run around there. And are they opposition to one another or at war with each other? If not, and everybody's running and gives more guys an opportunity to work, and I don't really know the particulars of what all is involved, and I don't think I know any of the guys that are running any of the operations. So as far as I know, if there's two companies and offer more opportunities to you guys to work, then I think it's great. But aside from that, I don't know what's going on.
So you don't really keep up with the current product then, right?
Not really.
Especially not right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now, but even lately, I see a lot of pretty much the same match over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think the pre-rehearsal that they do for a lot of the matches now, the spot calling, does it take away at all or make the match seem a little bit more shallow than calling it on the fly like a lot of you guys did back then?
I don't know. I have, like I said, I've been out of the business 30 years.
Right.
It's hard to criticize.
No, definitely not criticize. Do you think that did you enjoy calling it on the fly? Have you ever rehearsed anything beforehand, like a whole match have planned out?
Never the whole match. Shires used to have guys lay out, for tag team, he'd want you to have like 4, 5, 6 high spots laid out. If you're in a single, he'd like to have, that you planned, 3 to 5, maybe. I don't know if that's the numbers, but that you'd not that you necessarily do them. There's guys like Johnny Valentine and stuff like that. You lie in a rear chin lock for 15, 20 minutes, or an arm lock and bring up, but that was one guy's and his style, and he was able to get it over. I keep rocking this table. Sorry.
No, it's all right. No, everybody's definitely different. Cody, what do you think about that? Do you have to remember your whole match usually, or just like key moments?
Yeah, key moments. Being able to call it on the fly is something that I really aspire to do. I really admire the people that can go out there and just call a match, start to finish in the ring. It's very challenging, but being able to, talk about the shine, talk about the cutoff, the double down, and then going home with it. It really helps. And then everything in between there, if you're able to fill some stuff in, whatever happens, happens.
Right.
It goes back to listening, being able to listen in the ring is huge. And that's like I said earlier, it's something I learned real quick is listen, always listen.
Totally.
If you don't listen, you're going to feel it.
Yeah. And Don, a few more questions here. Big defining moment of your career is the Hall of Fame induction. Can you tell us how that felt to be inducted back in 2004 into the Hall of Fame?
Me personally, I was very impressed with the whole. I screwed up my whole acceptance speech, being actually being nervous and trying to get all the guys that the multitude of the wrestlers that I'd come in contact with from Bud, my first days in Dean's gym, and we go back to Bud Rattel in Vancouver, British Columbia, who wet nursed me in the gym on Hastings Street in downtown Vancouver, through all the guys to Snuka and everybody else, that been around for that great ride that I was on. So for me, it was and a lot of guys kind of slight the Hall of Fame, and it kind of turned into maybe a type of joke, for a lot of people. But for me, it was I was really impressed with myself.
That's great. That's really good. No, so you're proud of yourself for sure. And you were inducted by Mick Foley, right? How did that feel? Somebody who watched you, and I think got inspired by you during that Snuka match. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember part of his speech was we were both booked on a show to Aruba or Curacao or something, independent promo, and they sent the wrong checks, and he got my check, and
really?
I didn't get his, yeah. And he goes, oh, well, that, he said, oh man, I wanted to tell my brother, I'll change my check for yours. No,
yeah.
he was in that era, pay-per-views every other week and stuff, that was, Mick Foley he was a cool dude.
Yeah.
I think he ushered in that, that bump off the cage. I think Snuka with the jump off the top of the cage, he kind of ushered that era into wrestling, that extreme era. And then the Cactus Jack or Mick Foley just put the exclamation to it when he took that bump off the top of the cage through the table,
Yeah. So well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lucky hit that table.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. And last question before I head it over to Cody here. Don, a lot of people talk about Andre the Giant. I know you worked with him and had the pleasure of. Do you have any stories of Andre the Giant to share with us?
He was a good man. He was a happy guy, when he first came here, and then his health and stuff kind of wore on him. He used to come to Hawaii when we were all living in the Ambassador Hotel, and Tolis and John Studd. And, this was after we moved from the Circle in Waikiki, but this was later promotion there when I was home. And he used to sit out in the pool and play tapes and stuff. I remember when I told this before, the rib he played on, I know it was a rib because he did it to Pedro and he did it to Peter Maivia. The same thing, they'd be in the bar and he'd act like he was probably pretty well lit, but he'd act like he's all drunk, and he'd have him help him back to his room. They'd help him back to his room, and he had, naturally the king size bed. So as they got along, the person, he would collapse on him, pass out, and pin him underneath him,
oh my God.
There's Peter and Pedro. They're both, So I'm probably, it's like Fuji with cutting the heads off the dogs. If you've done it twice, probably used to done it more than that. So I'm sure they did more guys than just Pedro, and so he had a sense of humor for a long time. And till the pain caught up with him, he was He was a hell of a guy.
Amazing. Really good. And Cody, so what do you see for your future? Where would you like to go? Real open-ended question.
Wherever this takes me, honestly. Me and my fiance talked about it a lot, because it is a dream. We all do something because we want to get to the highest level of what we're doing, or we want to exceed to our highest expectations of ourselves. So I've had that conversation with her and with my parents, and I have 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 3-month-old now. So I got to think about them, and she's made it clear she does not want me on the road, but we're open to it. I don't want to get my hopes up for anything, but I'm going to put the hard work in, and wherever it goes, it goes. It was a seminar in September with Tom Pritchard. I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge opportunity just to kind of see what he has to say and what he can show me, because he's been around. So, yeah, taking it one step at a time, day by day, month by month, and whatever happens, happens. But I'm going to enjoy every bit of it. And, once I stop enjoying it, then it becomes a real job. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And Don, any advice for Cody heading forward in his career?
Just keep on going. Get all the shot. Get all the bookies you can get. Good luck. Best of luck in the world to you. And family is always a big consideration. Mm-hmm. I had my family when I was on the road. I didn't take a family into the road with me, so it was. A lot of guys did at the time, So, it's a hard decision, and once you reach it, and you have the ability, and you have people trying to get a hold of you, then it's hard to turn down, take the next step, to make the next move. But keep your head down and your eye on the prize, and don't hurt yourself in the meantime. Be safe and be smart.
Exactly.
Be solid, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. And
thank you,
Jonah.
For your time,
thank you. This was a huge honor, and I'm very.
Of course, thank you both for being on. Really, this was a fantastic episode. Don and Cody alike, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. Aloha.
Woo, Messy Daddy, boogie woogie man feel good. I tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss online, rewind, recap, relive. Oh yeah.